Well, here we go again. Taking a walk with my friend Paul on a dog walk every morning. And the topic came up. And he says, I don't like the $10,000 taking off student loans. And I said, why not? And he says, well, I didn't go to college, so why don't I get $10,000? First I had to correct him. You're not getting a $10,000 check. And I said, second of all, it's not free money because you're getting taxed on it. Third, typically government can keep that money and shove it up their ass, because that's how insignificant it is. Because you want to talk about anything that helps the American people who are struggling, inflation, cost of living, and we go down that rabbit hole every day. And it just gets deeper and more asininely inept and stupid. Because when the government gives something, it's fake. Because somewhere down the road, you're going to pay for it. So let's compare $300 million a day for 20 years versus $10,000. In fact, I'll challenge all of you political experts and CNN, MSN, ABC, CBS, all you so-called experts, explain to me how the Democrats and dumbass Republicans can be upset about $10,000 for forgiveness of a student loan, and yet, mind you, you don't say shit about $1 trillion for warmongers of the Pentagon. That not only do you give 6.8 taxpayers $1 trillion to fight a war you walk away from. Yep, and I'm redundantly going to throw that in your face every single day until you get tired of hearing it and actually act on it. Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill. Because although you talk all this rhetoric like it's a big deal to give the American people $10 million. Excuse me. I had to go check on my dog. Give the American people $10,000 for some loan shark federal government student loans that you pay criminal interest rates on. And somehow $10,000 versus $6.8 trillion in war spending. Democrats and Republicans, that's a travesty. But $6.8 trillion, that's quite all right. That's within the budget. See, this is the level of stupidity in this country. This is, and it's not the country. I got to stop saying that. It's this society and its political leadership, whether it's Democrat or Republican, because both of you are mindless, inept idiots, because your only agenda, and let's be honest, is to protect the wealthy 1% interests who rule America. What is human life worth? And while you're on your iPhones and iPads and virtual reality machines, living in your smart houses and driving your smart cars, think about that for a minute. $300+ million people living in a country who get told the same autocracy bullshit for decades and centuries, and you never change. You never see a difference. And that's another subject we brought up about the difference in generations. And I was told at one hand somehow that millennials are the worst that ever was. Depends on what time period you were born in. Even back in the Roman, Genghis Khan, Persian, Egyptian era, you had the same thing. Supposedly it's disposed to of progression. But if you look at society today in 2022, it's more like a regression. Because people today are more idiots of inept, narcissistic, meme, self-absorbed, idiotic mentality than ever before in history. And you talk about jobs and how jobs are going to be 10 years from now. Technology. You're not going to need to think. That's pretty much where jobs are going to be 10 years from now. You're just going to be mindless morons pushing buttons. It's like you're mindless morons pushing buttons now on your tablets, iPads, iPhones, virtual reality machines, smart TVs, smart home remotes. You're a push-button society, and you want to wonder why you're not progressing, you're regressing. Because that 10% up here is now hardly ever being used, except for your own self-indulged, self-righteous idiocracies. And I told him, I said, my friend Paul, I can't see how Democrats and Republicans, both of dumbasses, uneducated college graduates. And the reason why I said that, I'm not saying it to be derogatory. I'm saying it because it's true. If you think $10,000 to bring down student loans is worse than spending $6.8 trillion on a war you walked away from and left priceless military resources to your so-called brown-skinned terrorists, Taliban. What did you go to college for? Because that's common sense. Common sense. I'd rather spend $10,000 out of my pocket than $6.8 trillion. You think? It's scary, and I mean this sincerely. It's scary how ineptly stupid American people have become. And the proof of that is this creation of Donald Trump. And you will never hear that argument. You will never hear that subject brought up in your mainstream media or on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all the other mindless Trump morons media. That you knew this guy was corrupted criminal scum before he even became president. That's the excuse America always has. Just like the excuse with Germany and Hitler. The excuse of Genghis Khan. The excuse China and their dictators. Japan too. England and their so-called royalty. And you don't want me to get on that subject. You just don't. Somehow, somebody's bloodline is different than yours because they say so. Don't even get me started. If a criminal breaks into your house, steals all your possessions, and as he's walking out the door, he'll tell you, "Oh, I didn't mean to steal it. But I'll bring it back." And for all you idiots who can't think about that. Criminal breaks into your house, takes all your possession, tells you, "I didn't mean to steal it, but I'll bring it back." And you're standing there endlessly for the day a criminal brings back what he stole from you. See, that's the stupidity. That's the stupidity I'm talking about. That's where America is at right now. They're at the all-time low cesspool sewer of uneducated, mindlessly following, indoctrinated, conformed goats and sheep. Because that's how they use you. They use you like goats and sheep. They heard they heard you and your stupidity of uninformed education. Or should I say uneducation. You'll go on news all the time. Trump, 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 Trump. Like this man's a god. Like this man is a dictator. You feed into that sick mentality of one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Jack Nicholson. That's what he is. He's a modern day Jack Nicholson. And one flew over the cuckoo's nest. And you dumbasses just follow the stupidity and you just engage. You just innately enable a privileged white man rhetoric. Just mindless rhetoric. Anything comes out of his mouth is just like spewing out sewer and cesspool shit. But you'll take it and just wrap it around, just waller in it. That's what you do. You waller in shit. Pathological lies, xenophobic, sociopathic, misogynistic, delusional, pathological liar, traitor, treasonous, sedition, scum. And you sit there on the news every day. And this is not all American people, but most of you. You're inept idiots because you believe this shit. You believe anything somebody tells you across that idiot tube. Now they're widescreens. You never think and research. Because if you did, you would know 1987, this criminal that you made a president sold his soul to Russia. Because he had so much debt that no bank in America, no bank anywhere would touch his ass. So we had to go out of the country. But you never talk about that. ABC, NBC, CBS, 9 News, Kyle Clark, Fox News, Trump News, fake news. If we had a intelligent community, CIA, he would never enter into that White House. If we had security, that you flag-waving, patriotic, white supremacy, redneck inbreds waving flags would never attack our capital. If we had so-called security, homeland security, but nobody wants to talk about that. Every day you'll get on the news. You can't spend an hour or half an hour speaking about anything besides bringing this idiot's name up. But you could have ended that decades and centuries ago. So you're not that smart. You're not that intelligent. You're not that bunch of experts you pretend to be. Because if you did, Donald Trump would not exist. He would have left him in that sewer cesspool that his family lived in for decades and centuries, just like his daddy did and his uncle. So America, you let your guard down. You allow the very thing that you warred against, you sit there and defend against, allow it to enter into your White House. And now it's entered into your Capitol Hill, your Senate, your Congress. Gun-toting, white supremacy, inbred, gun-toting idiots. But you call this a civilized society. Merrick Garland. You got a tough job as Attorney General, especially facing a bunch of inept morons in the Supreme Court. I don't believe in abortion either. I'm pro-life. But I won't say that I have the right over a woman's body for her own personal decision. I can disagree to agree. That's an intelligent society, not an autocracy that you say America is not. Fascist, capitalistic autocracy that dictates. But you'll wave the red, white, and blue flag about dictators in China, Japan, Russia. You cover it up because you pretty much do the same thing here. When we scream about $10,000 given to students compared to $6.8 trillion given to warmongering, profit-mongering corporate assholes like Halliburton and the Bushes. Does any of this make sense to you? I'm sure it doesn't, because you don't think. You just sit there and exist on your iPads and your iPhones. Walking around life with your head down. Never your head up, trying to educate yourself. You love being dumbed down. Just drifting aimlessly in that rabbit hole of inept ignorance. You're sarcastic, Isaiah. You're pessimistic. Show me something to be positive about in this country right now. Freshly coming out of college, I was gung-ho too. I was going to change the world. Try to make life better, even sitting in church every Sunday listening to the sermons. And man is innately good and blah, 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 blah. Man, God can change. And ministers were preaching, choir singing. And then you go home and hear about a minister got somebody pregnant. And they whitewash that too. Or stealing money, embezzling money from the church. Especially right now, you evangelical hypocrites, racists, white supremacy bigots, hiding behind Jesus. We love Jesus. And God wants you to be wealthy. And be humble, be meek, and all these things. Use the Bible, will be added unto you. They just like Satan, take the Bible and just twist it It's like when Jesus was standing on the mount. He said, cast yourself down. He says, you're the Son of God. Isn't it written that the angels will bear you up? Satan knows the Bible. Just like these monkeys behind the Rossums on TV. Satan knows the Bible. That's why they can preach that bullshit. And you monkeys, just like Washington, D.C. and Capitol Hill, you're the same idiots. You're the same idiots that they mold. Just like when you actually mold a car. You got different body forms, but you're still the same idiots. I tested my teachers when I was in school because they got on that bandwagon of George Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln, Adams and all of them. And I said, I researched George Washington. And we didn't have computers then, we had libraries. And I took a book out on George Washington and I read his life. And he was a slave owner. Now this is, the reason why I'm bringing this up, because this is the same autocracy, hypocritical, racist, bigoted mentality that exists today. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that every man is created equal and is endowed with these inevitable rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Since when? In fact, they didn't believe that when they said it. How could you? What you did to the indigenous American people. What the fuck does that statement mean? As intelligent people. I don't mean to disrespect the Constitution. I don't mean to disrespect the preamble. But what the fuck does it mean when you genocide and massacre people and steal their country? This is what you I don't know what to call you. Seriously. Because you damn sure ain't intelligent. And I don't give a shit how many schools you go to or how many colleges you graduate from or how many attorneys and lawyers and prosecutors and defense attorneys come out of your Ivy League, Yale. I went to Princeton. I went to Duke. I got my Ivy League sheepskin degree. Makes me smarter than the average man. No, it don't. Makes you stupider. Because you're bookheads. Everything you read in that book, you don't research it. You blow that shit up your ass and out your mouth. Fact of life is common sense. And experiencing opposite of what you learn in school and in college. That's why some believe today, what's the sense of going to college? I'm pretty much on that bandwagon. Unless you have a specific occupational study. That when you get out, you actually go straight into that job. I want to take a couple of years and figure out what my major's going to be. A couple of years, you're going to sit there and drink, party. And when the 2 years up, you're nowhere near closer to what your major and minor is than a cat flying to the moon. Mommy and daddy dropping hundreds of thousands of dollars to make sure. My son drives a Mercedes Benz and a BMW and a Lamborghini. $240,000 sports cars to scam a bunch of inbred redneck evangelical idiots. Stop, because y'all never get that. You will never get the setup, even since the beginning of this country. They set you up. And the very ones who got behind the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, Harriet Tubman, the very thing these people died for, and what sticks me in my craw. You have the same Supreme Court. Supreme Court doesn't surprise me. Their decisions don't surprise me, because you turned away Roe versus Wade, because you thinking about now turning away voting rights, turning away a black man married to a white woman, turning away to right to exist, and headed right back to slavery again. Black slavery as well as white indentured slaves. That's pretty much what we're headed back to. You're just repeating the same inept, uneducated, inbred, redneck bullshit that you always did since the invasion of this country. But you do it in a way that morons and monkeys just travel like a bunch of ants in a colony, going back and forth and not seeing the spray bombs coming your way. But this is fine with you. This is fine because you're doing this every day. My likes, my hits, what goes viral, what apps can I sell, what technology can I change. And it's a cover over the infested, corrupted, political, racist, bigoted, sexist, anti-Catholic, anti-Jewish, anti-African American, Mexican, Asian. The facts they won't tell you is this: blue eyes is becoming a minority. That whole agenda of Trump was initiated because some Republican asshole read some statistics, some white supremacy Duke Proud Boy Oath Keeper asshole read the facts that blue eyes is becoming a minority in America because white folk ain't having babies, but brown folks are. So we's got to change that. Supreme Court, Congress, Senate. Goes back to that old Jim Crow statement. You educate a black man, you're going to have to kill him because he's going to want the same things we have. Same thing with the women. You got to keep our foot on the neck of women because you're giving too much rights. They're going to want the same things we have. What do we see today? Women's rights. Back in the day, civil rights movement. Yes, they're going to want the same thing you have, which is freedom, liberty, justice for all, constitutional rights, civil rights. Ooh, that's a bad thing, huh? Fucking morons. And this is the rabbit hole I'm talking about that America's been spinning over and over again. It's like the black hole. It's a never-ending autocracy of hypocrisy, racist, bigoted bullshit. And you're just like Alice is. Except she fell into something solid. You idiots will never will. You'll just aimlessly float in the abyss of stupidity and inept ignorance. Because somehow in that mind of yours, they indoctrinated you. They imprinted stupidity in that mentality of yours to not to see the truth of what goes on in our society and our government. See, you have a significant percentage of people who try to change. Don't get me wrong. Yes, they do. They try. The fervor, the persistent and relentlessness to try to change this autocracy, hypocritical, racist, bigoted bullshit. It's a full-time job, 24/7. But you don't hear about this. Trump, 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 Trump. So my point is, Washington, D.C., don't talk about $10,000 versus $6.8 trillion. Don't talk about Section 8, affordable housing, homelessness, elderly, cost of living, inflation, recession. Because you don't give a shit about these things. Let's just be honest and just forthcoming with people, because it's an election season and you want votes. And your Democrat and your Republican Party are mindless, endless bullshit that you talk and you have no fruits of your labor, because innately it's a bunch of bullshit that you just talk about. Why you don't pass any legislation, any bills of significance that changes the lives of American people. And don't blame that shit just on one old man, senile, and another one who's a treasonous terrorist, seditious, insurrection, racist, bigoted cult leader, coup, white supremacy militia leader, criminal. You can't blame it on them alone. What do they say? Takes people to become the village. Depends on what village you want to be a part of, America. You actually want to be ruled by freedom, liberty, and justice for all? Or be led by a dictator? Mental case. Criminal, scam artist, con man. Russian asset. Traitor, treasonous, scum. That's a choice you're going to have to make. Department of Justice, CIA, NSA, MI5, MI6, Homeland Security, FBI, military. You really want America, land of the free? Or you want America led by a mental ill dictator? Your choice.